Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Lili Nishmasi Mimirasi Rusbas Mordechai. Baruch Hashem, feeling much, much better. Fever is gone. The cramps are gone. Just the aftermath of the flu. Be'ezer Hashem, I hope to be back in the Bismedrash even today. I just need to make sure I'm not going to get anybody sick. All right, Chazi Hashem, we are back. I just finished giving the shir in Hebrew. Since I wasn't able to prepare so well yesterday, so I had to do a little bit of a all-nighter kind of thing, but Baruch Hashem, I'm not tired, and we're ready to go. I'm basically caught up. So, Yishkoyach to you guys in the Bismedrash, Yishkoyach to everybody for the understanding, Yishkoyach for all the messages of Rufu Shlema and Mazel Tov. I didn't get back to hardly anyone, and I feel bad. Maybe, I don't know, could you get back to people when it's already a day or two later? I don't know. I don't know what the halacha is. Maybe, yeah. Good Vacha, good Chodesh, and Afreil Chanukah. My 10-year-old grandson, Meir Reiser from North Woodmere, who has been doing the daf with you for a few months already with his Chanukah party project. He can't wait to meet you again at the Shabbaton. Kobe Moses, Cedarhurst. Rabbi Isai, a message from the one and only Yoel Gold.
Hey everybody, Yoel Gold here. I just want to tell you that I'm genuinely so excited, so pumped to come to the NDY Shabbos and spend a Shabbos with Reb Eli and the Chabura. I was there last year and I got to tell you, it literally infused life into me. It gave me chizuk to continue learning the daf every single day for the entire year. And I'm not even exaggerating. If you can, get over there and join us for Shabbos. You will not regret it, and you'll thank me. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Givaldik. And as you know, you could enter the raffle if you don't have a room yet, and even if you have a room, and all money goes to tzedakah regardless. So here you have an opportunity to give tzedakah and perhaps win one of 3 rooms. Unbelievable. From the hottest commodities out there. My own son, Kiwi, told me he wants to flip his room. He says, you got me a room? Great, I want to sell it. So, nah, that's not how it works. But I know there are people out there trying to scalp the rooms. Masechta sponsored by David Solomon, dedicated memory of Avi Mori Reb Shmuel Baruch Ben Reb Chaim Tzvi Doi Zichron Levracha. Masechta sponsored by Anonymous, Lili Nishmas Doidi Shlomo Yehuda Zichron Levracha Ben Shmuel Chaim Asher Shokav Elom Kodshim Kol Chayav. Anonymous Lezech Nishmas Nochum Tzvi Ben David. Sponsored by Skybrook Capital in honor of our friends Meir Kovacs, Taki, and Shamshi Shlavrak for the devotion to our study in this year. Joel Gedalius, Lili Nishmas, my father Jack Gedalius. Anonymous Hatzlocha Baruch Nisu V'Gashmias. Kyle sponsor for the month, Anonymous from London, Parnasa B'Shef Almein. Monthly sponsors, Anonymous, Brochad Lidai, Baruch Tzvi Nisim Ben Shoshana Lev, Yehuda Ben Yomim Ben Chava. Anonymous from London, Hatzlocha Parnasa. Aryi Simon, for Shlema Avi Mori, Baruch Ben Miriam. Daily sponsors, Michael Zuckerman, L'Zech Nishmas, my mother, as today is her yard site, Moras, Rasha Bas Rabbi Yisrael Tzvi, Mrs. Raz Zuckerman, Alea Shalom. Daphne Hilla, Judah, and Ava Graby. The memory of Ellen Graby, Altabraina Bas, Baruch Yuda on her second yard site. YK for good health and Parnasa Berevach. Kinnovations LLC, Mazel Tov to Reb Eli and Reb Stefansky on the birth of your newest grandson. Emir Hashem, your family should continue to have simchas, Purim, Shkoyach, Eli, Chaya, Kalmo, Yisrael, and Tehillah with much love. Chaim Milrad, Refu Shleima, Reb Elio, Ben Rus, Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Zeis Chanukah. I don't know, the flu is not, okay, it's the flu. But Yishkoyach, I had a shtickle flu in the past during my 6-year streak, but I was able to somehow prepare shir on the first day also. This might be the first time that I was in Eretz Yisrael and didn't go to shir, didn't say shir in the morning. Mordechai Zapazik, Mazel Tov to Mr. and Mrs. Aaron Stefansky on the birth of a baby boy. Mazel Tov to the grandparents, Reb Eli and Mrs. Stefansky. They continue to have only simchas and nachas. Shkoyach Mordechai. Wow, beautiful. Sally Forgang, the biggest MDY kiss from Hashem as tonight, Beis Tavis, is 4 years since I started learning MDY. And is the night my son Yumi is getting married. Wow. The biggest MDY kiss from Hashem. Mazel Tov Tzali, Mazel Tov. Rufu Shlema, the MDY art. Rufu Shlema for Yonatan Eitan ben Beshev Bracha. Rufu Shlema Mordechai ben Esther. Rufu As Hayeled Daniel Zev ben Hayeled Esther. Rabbi Yisai, here we go. We're holding Daf Tzadik Tes, Omid Aleph, the top word, Mamish, where we need to be holding. And Be'ezer Hashem will finish today's Omid Daf, in record time. B'no Hani Mili. The Mishnah tells us that a kohen that cannot perform the avodah, he does not get a part of the korbanos. How do we know that? Omar Shlokish do Omar Kro HaKohen HaMechatei Oisa Yoichlena. HaMechatei means Zrika. A kohen that can perform the avodah of Zrika, he can eat. Kohen HaMechatei Oichel. A kohen who does Zrikas Adam could eat. Shein HaMechata Eini Oichel. If he cannot perform the Zrika, he cannot participate in the eating of the korbanos. As the Gemara, Uklalo, is that a serious, non-negotiable klal rule? What about the hundreds of kahanim that are in the Beis Hamikdash who did not perform the zrika? Only one kohen does zrika. It's not that all 100 hold on to the kli. One kohen does zrika and everybody gets to eat. So it has nothing to do with the one that does the zrika. So the Gemara, the obvious answer, I didn't say they have to do zrika. I said they could do zrika. Every kohen in the Beis Hamikdash could perform the zrika. They let one guy do it. Or he got whatever, he won the raffle. But everyone has the ability to do it, but not a Tvul Yaim, not a Mechusar Kippurim. He cannot do it even if he wanted to. As the Gemara, what about Harei Katan, a Katan cannot perform the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. He cannot do Zrikas Adam. How does he get to eat? What does it mean to eat? Yachlekena. Here's the pasuk. It doesn't mean that he eats. What it literally means is that he gets a portion of it. There's a difference. And we have to remember this because we're going to be talking about it a little bit here and there on today's daf. There's a very big difference between somebody who receives a portion and somebody who receives a piece of food. A katan, a minor, could eat. You give him a piece of steak, he eats a steak. But he cannot take a portion of the carbon. You can't take 3 pounds of meat home and to divide it up with his family. That not. If you invite him to your meal, you give him a lamb chop, that he could eat. So there's a difference between yoichal and yichalkeno. Yichalkeno is to receive a portion. If he could do the Zrikas Hadam, he gets a portion. So therefore, the Tvul Yoim cannot get a portion because he cannot do Zrika. And a Katan also can't get a portion because he can't do Zrika. He could get to eat. But the point is not the eating. The point is the Avodah. The point is the Chaluka, to get a real portion. Anybody that cannot do Zrika cannot get a portion. Ask the Gemara, Harei Balmum, what about a person who has a blemish? He cannot do the Zrika. A person who has a mum cannot do the Avodah. V'choylek, yet he can get a portion. Says Gemara Balmum, Rachmana Rabbi. Special pasuk called Zochar Bakoyahanim, Rabbis Balmum. Let's see this video for a second.
No entry. You're a Mechuzer Kippurim.
Tvul Yoim is not permitted entry. You can be Choylek. But a Balmum could go in. Who else is inside the room? Katan. Interesting stuff. I saw the guy on the right side with the pitas. He was holding a AI. Zog the Gemara. So there's a special pasuk that says that a Baal Mum can eat. As the Gemara, how do you know that this pasuk called Zachar comes to include a Baal Mum? We have two people that it's okay. Obviously, the pasuk is not coming to include a normal, healthy kain. The pasuk is coming to include somebody that typically doesn't get to eat kachim. Who would that be? So the Gemara says it's a Baal Mum, but there's also Tful Yaim. There's also somebody who's tamei, went to the mikveh that day, and is waiting for the nightfall. So maybe the pasuk is coming to say that Tful Yaim he could get to eat the kachim, not the Baal Mum. So we have two people to include. One out of two. Who told you to pick the Baal Mum over the Tful Yaim? Says the Gemara, it makes a lot of sense that we're going to include the Baal Mum. Why? A Baal Mum, the Torah says that he could eat. That we saw here. If this person has a mum, he could eat kachim. We're discussing now, can a Baal Mum get a portion? The fact that he eats, that's what I said before. There's a distinction between eating and a portion. Eating, we know there's a Mefurish pasuk that says the Baal Mum could eat. But how do we know that a Baal Mum could take a portion? It makes sense, because he could eat. A Tful Yaim cannot eat, and therefore he doesn't get a portion. It makes more sense that the Torah says that a Baal Mum who could eat could get a portion. As the Gemara, no, perhaps say the opposite. A Tful Yaim makes more sense than a Baal Mum. A Tful Yaim that night is going to be perfect. He's like any other human being. He just has to wait 4 or 5 hours, and boom, by nightfall, he'll get to eat, and therefore he should get a chelik right now. Says Rashi, at night he could perform the avoida, not just that he could eat, he could perform avoida tonight. All he has to do is wait a couple of hours. Says Gemara, very good that in a few hours he could. At this moment, right now, as we're talking, he cannot perform the avoida, and therefore he is considered on a lesser madrega than a Baal Mum who right now could eat. Rav Yosef Omar, Rav Yosef says, if the pshat in the pasuk, we just explained, it doesn't mean to eat, it means more than eating. It means to get a piece and a portion of the distribution of the carbon. So then why is the Torah using another word, eating? The Torah should have said before, to divide it, to get a piece of the portion. Obviously says Rav Yosef, obviously what the nekuda is, yes, yechlena means a portion. But how do you get a portion? It's dependent on the one who's able to eat. And Mamela, a Baal Mum could eat, therefore it equals he could get a portion. A Tful Yaim who cannot eat does not get a portion. Boyer Shlokish, I found this question to be fascinating. What I mean by fascinating, it kind of disturbed me a little bit. All right, so we're just going to take it back a minute or two because we had some sort of disruption with the server over here. Rav Yosef Omar. Rav Yosef says, when we have this pasuk over here, we already discussed that the word yechlena doesn't necessarily mean to eat, but it means that he's able to take part of the carbon, the chaluk of the carbon. So why is the Torah using a different word? If the Torah meant chaluka, so say chaluka. If the Torah meant achila, so say achila. It says achila, so obviously it means achila. Just what? Shmamino, ma yechlena. You see from here that you're right, that the point is to get the portion. But how do you get a portion? You need to be able to eat. A tful yoim cannot eat, therefore no portion. A balmum could eat, therefore yes portion. It is portion and it is eating. They're interdependent. They're dependent on each other. Boy Rish Lakish. Balmum vutame. What if not only is he a balmum, but he's also tame? For whatever reason, the Gemara understands that if the Torah gives you a heter on a balmum, so then the Torah will give you a heter to the tumah of that balmum as well. On the one hand, balmum vutame mao shiach lekulay. Could he still get a portion? He cannot perform that avodah, but the Torah says that he still gets a portion. He still gets to eat. Mali tame, mali balmum. So what's the difference if this guy is balmum or he's tame? Or perhaps it's only somebody who's able to eat, and this guy, this balmum, cannot eat. Why can't he eat? Because he's tame, and therefore he doesn't get a portion. Amarabba, and we're going to have this one after another. These exact words, this exact raya. Tashma, kohen gadol makrivoinein. These are psukim regarding the kohen gadol. It says in the pasuk, a kohen gadol cannot deal with any of the dead in his family, even he shouldn't become tamei to his own father and mother. And the pasuk Yud Beis says, he does not leave the mikdash, meaning he continues to perform the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Kohen gadol makrivoinen, he performs the avodah when he's a oinen, when he just lost a close relative, and he's a oinen the day of the death. He's considered a oinen. Nevertheless, he doesn't eat. So what do you see? And he doesn't even take a portion so that he can eat when he's not a oinen anymore that night. What do you see from here? It's not enough that he's able to perform the avodah. The point is that he has to be able to eat. So a Baal Mum who's Tame, who cannot eat, doesn't get a portion. Because the Nakuda is you have to be able to eat. You see by a Kohen Gadol that he has to be able to eat, that's why he doesn't get a portion. So to a Baal Mum, he has to be able to eat. And if he can't eat, he cannot get a portion. Wherever it's Shaya. And now we're going to ask another question, it's going to be the same answer. When the Kohanim, they bring a carbon of the community. And Rashi says we're talking about that the people bring it are tar. We're not talking about Tuma Shahudru B'tzibor. We're talking about regular Tahirim bring this carbon. Ma'ush Yachlu Kulai, he's Tame. Could he get a portion? What's the question? He could be part of the Avodah, of the Zrika, because it's for the community. Or perhaps no, since he can never eat it because he's Tameh, therefore he doesn't get a portion. This is what we said a second ago. Toshma, Kohen Gadol makriv. A Kohen Gadol can perform the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash when he's a oinen. I want to again say to my very good friend and a very, very big part of MDY, Remy Cohen, who's a Kohen, and he lost his father yesterday. The Levi was yesterday. He's the Kohen Gadol of MDY. But Kohen Gadol performs the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Performs the avodah, but he can't eat from the korbanos. And he also doesn't get a portion. Shmamino, what do you see from here? In order to get a portion, you have to be able to eat. And since the Kohen Gadol cannot eat, he doesn't get a portion. Shmamino. We learned in the Mishnah, Nu Sogya, Oinen, Nogeya, Ve'eno Yimakriv. A Oinen could touch korbanos, but he doesn't perform the avodah. Ask the Gemara, Oinen Nogeya, what? A Oinen could actually touch the korban. Berimini, Oinen, Umechutz Kippurim, Tzrichim Tvila, Lekaidesh. If a Oinen wants to touch a korban, he must go to the mikveh prior to that. And a Mechutz Kippurim is interesting. A Mechutz Kippurim is somebody who's Tameh. Goes to the mikveh, let's say he's a Zah, goes to the mikveh on Sunday afternoon, so he has to wait until Sunday night. Now, Sunday night he becomes he's a Tvul Yom until Sunday night, but he's still a Mechusik Kippurim. He still must bring a carbon the following day. He brings a carbon the following day. He cannot touch Kachim unless he goes to the mikveh again. But we're talking about a Einan. A Einan must go to the mikveh. How could the Mishnah say that he touches the carbon? It says he has to go to the mikveh first. So there's a number of answers there. Says the Gemara, Utzrichen Tefillah LeKodesh. Amar Rabbi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he says the name of Rabbi Yochanan Lekashio. Kam b'shetovel, kam b'shetovel. Our Mishnah is talking about that he went to the mikveh. How come the Mishnah says the Einan can touch? Because he went to the mikveh as he's an Einan. And where it says he can't touch because he didn't go to the mikveh. As the Gemara v'chitavel mehavi. What good does it do for him if he goes to the mikveh when he's Einan? What happens when he comes out of the mikveh? He's still an Einan. His father still died that day. Didn't go away. So how could he go to how could the mikveh help him? V'chitavel mehavi. Hodra ali aninos. The aninos comes back. Rabbi Huna says that even if Einan goes to the mikveh, he remains in Einan. Says the Gemara, if the Einan is, why does the Einan have to go to the mikveh? Because he's so busy with the funeral arrangements and everything else going on in his life that he's not paying attention to stay away from Tumah. You could hear a great example. Let's say he has to go retrieve his father's body from the hospital. He's not paying attention that in the hospital there might be another dead person and the whole hospital is tumas oil. He's not concentrating. He has hezek hadas. But when an Einan says, I was paying attention that I shouldn't touch any tumah like a regular kohen does, then he has the right to touch the kachim. So a kohen that wasn't Mesiach Das doesn't have to go to the mikveh at all when he's Einan. The fact that he has to go to the mikveh is only because he was Mesiach Das. Ask the Gemara if in fact we're talking about that he was Mesiach Das, meaning he could have walked in the hospital and become Tomei Tumas Meis through the oil. Shlishu Shvi Bai, then you have to treat him like a regular person who went to Levaya and he would require 7 days of Tahara, and then on the third day he has to get sprinkled, on the seventh day he has to get sprinkled. How does one mikvah dunk help him? If a person says, I wasn't paying attention whether or not I was careful for Tumah, then we have to treat him to the most extreme, which is Tumas Meis. Like Asher. He was very careful not to go to Levaya, not to go into the hospital with Tumas oil, but he wasn't careful not to touch a sheretz. Sheretz, here we go. Shmona Shrotzim. If you touch one of these 8 guys, he's Tomei Sheretz, which is only a 1-day Tumah. As the Gemara, 1-day Tumah is different than what we said. We said just go to the mikveh and you become tar. 1-day Tumah means you go to the mikveh and you still have to wait until Erev Shemesh, until nightfall. Tomei Sheretz, Tomei Malyu, that's a regular Tumah Deiraisa, Erev Shemesh boy. How could he just go to the mikveh and touch the kachim? V'oid, afilu trumanami. Now if we go back 8 lines, when the Gemara says, V'ramini, oinenu mechusik kippurim tzrichen tefillah l'kodesh. So I'm showing you here, I put a chart. This is that Mishnah over there in Chagiga. It says, Ha'oinen u'mechusik kippurim tzrichen tefillah l'kodesh. Ha'oinen and mechusik kippurim have to go into the mikvah, they have to be toivel in order to touch kachim. And the Gemara asks, how come our Mishnah says they could just touch kachim? And now we're coming up with a different distinction. He said, had esach das, didn't have esach das. He went to the mikvah, didn't go to the mikvah. What does it say at the end of the Mishnah? Truma. In order to eat truma, you don't have to go to the mikvah. As the Gemara, avoid afilu truma nami. Truma would also need a mikvah if you're Mesiach Das. If you're not sure whether or not you kept your tahara and you might have touched the sheretz, you have to go to the mikvah if you want to eat truma. There's such a concept that a person could say, listen, I know for a fact that I was careful not to touch Tumah D'Oraisa, but I don't know if I was careful not to touch Tumah D'Rabbanan that makes me puzzle. And Memela, I know for a fact I didn't touch a sheretz. I certainly didn't touch a dead person. And Memela, if I go to mikvah, I'm tar right away. But the Rabbanan, it's enough to go to the mikvah and you can eat kosher right away because it's only tumah the Rabbanan. There's a book that was written by two researchers called The Invisible Gorilla. Basically, they did a study where they told people, they said, watch these two teams. Tell us how many times did the team in white catch the ball? 1, 2, 3, and they're counting this. They try to trick them a little bit. When they're done, they say, okay, how many times did the team in white catch the ball? So they say 32 times. Did you see anything unusual while they were catching the ball? They say no. Most of them say no. You didn't see a gorilla? No. You didn't see a gorilla pumping its fist? No. What they do is they bring a gorilla, a guy dressed up as a gorilla, into, which reminds me, I have to tell you this, I don't think I said this, Maisa, but this is a story you could ask my father-in-law at the Shabbaton. My father-in-law wanted to, he devised a certain method, he devised many methods in surgery, and he spoke about them around the world, and he's famous for his different chidushim in surgery. So one of his chidushim, he wanted to say that even a gorilla could do this surgery. So he had me dress up as a gorilla, and I walked into the surgery room, and there's a guy there on the table, the whole zach, and I pretended to do surgery. Even a gorilla could do surgery. Anyway, so I had a whole video crew, this, that, I was the gorilla. The gorilla happened to be in this gym while they're throwing the ball, in middle of the whole chevra, and most of the people, they were so concentrated on how many times this and this group caught the ball, they didn't even see the gorilla. And they want to say that there's something like, I forgot what they call it, like when you concentrate on a certain thing, everything else doesn't matter, and nothing, you don't see different things. It's a great, I'm telling you, Rabbi Isai, you should buy this book maybe, or at least learn about it so you can use it with your spouse. You say, listen, it's the invisible gorilla. I was so concentrated on my learning, I was so concentrated on my phone call, I was so concentrated on my work that I didn't hear you calling me. The wife always complains, what, you didn't hear me? I thought I told you. I said that. No. Especially a male only concentrates on one thing. And when you concentrate, you don't see anything else. Zero, nothing. A gorilla could come walk by, you don't see it. As I stated, I'm concentrating on Tumah D'Oraisa. That's what I'm concentrating on that. Tumah D'Rabbanan could be the Rabbanan came by and touched. I don't know. That I can't tell you. I'm concentrating on this. Says the Gemara, where do we see such a concept that a person is watching something, but he only watches for half? Other things could slip in and slip by. We do see this. But Tanya, and I'll prove it to you. Person has a basket full of figs on his head, and there's a little shovel, a tiny shovel to scoop out the figs. Here it is. Here's the figs on his shoulder. And the magrefa is that metal spoon, let's say, some sort of tool. Here you could see that the magrefa is red, meaning it's tameh, and the figs are green, they're tar. V'omar, and he says, Libi ala sal v'in libi ala magrefa. My heart, my mind is on the basket and its content. V'in libi ala magrefa. I'm not thinking, I'm not protecting the metal magrefa. The halacha is asal tar, v'magrefa tmeya. So in fact, as you see in the picture, the whole basket will remain tar and the shovel will remain tameh. Let's just go back to the sponsors, I don't forget it. It's a brand new month, and therefore we don't have as many Turning of the Daf sponsors, only Adar Global. Turning of the Daf, Adar Global, special experts in international payments. Shkoyach Aryeh for wanting to come over today. I don't know, I'm not 100% yet. and it's more comfortable as nobody here. I don't have to worry coughing on people, etc., etc. Shkoyach though for the offer. So says the Gemara, you see over here that I could differentiate. I say my mind is on this and not on that. Ask the Gemara of why doesn't the shovel, that big spoon that's tame, why doesn't it make the basket tame? So let's just talk about Tum and Tahira for a second. Everybody that's in MDY knows this stuff very well, and it's kedai to repeat it once in a while. The way Tum and Tahira work, Tuma, is that there's the Avi Avaisa Tuma, that's the most severe Tuma, and that's a dead person. Anytime a Tuma touches something else, 95% of the time, it goes down one level. The severity of the Tuma goes down one level. So if Avi Avaisa Tuma touches a human being, a live human being, that live human being goes, instead of being Avi Avaisa Tuma, becomes Ava Tuma. And then if that Ava Tuma touches food, let's say, so it drops down one level, becomes from Avatuma to a Rishon. Another Avatuma could be a Sheretz. A Sheretz is not a Via Vaisatuma, it's an Avatuma. And when a Sheretz touches a person or Kalim, it becomes a Rishon. A Rishon that touches something else becomes a Sheni, and the Sheni can make a Shlish. Usually it stops at Sheni, even, just the more sensitive something is, the more susceptible it is to Tuma. So when it's Kachim, when it's Truma, even a Sheni can make Truma a Shlishi. If it's even more sensitive than Truma, let's say it's Kachim, so a Shlishi can make Kachim or Revi, and if it's even more sensitive than that, then a Paraduma can become a Chamishi, which we hardly ever see. So says the Gemara like this. If you look at this chart over here, a Rishon cannot make another vessel a Sheni. A Rishon can make a human being, it can make food a Sheni, but it cannot make another vessel. So therefore, if we go back to our picture over here, this red Kli cannot make the second Kli a Rishon. Ein Kli Rishon metama Kli. Sorry, Ein Kli metama Kli. This Kli that's a Rishon cannot make another Kli Tame. As the Gemara of the Tame Mashe B'Toichon. Okay, it can't make another Kli Tame, but why can't it make the fruit inside the vessel Tame? All the figs should become Tame. Because he made sure that this magrefa, this shovel, should not become a Rishon. That's what he made sure. And therefore, since this shovel is not a Rishon, it cannot make fruit Tame. He made sure that that's what's going to happen. Let's just show, I don't want to forget this thing. The Sheretz is Avatoma, not Aviv, it's Avatoma. And if you put a Sheretz in the ear space of a Klicheres, everything becomes a Rishon. Now, if the Rishon touches another food, what does it become? I'm sorry. Becomes a Sheni. The bread became a Rishon, and now it should have made this a Sheni. I don't know why it says Shlishi. Okay, might be a mistake. Zog the Gemara. Yeah, unless I missed something. Should I do it again? Let's do it again, just to make sure. Not this. Not this. Oh. See, I have Avatuma. He puts it into the tanur. So it becomes a rishon. Oh, he's saying that the actual oven becomes a rishon and the bread becomes a sheni. And therefore, the sheni makes a shlishi. So that's what I'm not so sure if the bread becomes a sheni. Shouldn't become a rishon? I don't know. Okay. If he says, maybe he knows. All right. We'll figure it out later. Zog the Gemara. Omar Rebbe. Sorry. So this thing rolled around a little bit by the Talmidim, and finally it came to Reb Abba bar Mamel. Omar Lu, so Reb Abba bar Mamel tells them, didn't you hear what Rabbi Yochanan said in the name of Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi? Ha'oichel shlishi shel truma, asur lechol umuter liga. If truma, you have a sheni, yeah, you have a sheni, and a sheni touches truma, so the truma becomes a shlishi. Yeah, maybe it's good to go back to this chart. Over here you see, a sheni that touches truma becomes a shlishi. So a person who eats this shlishi, a kayan who eats truma, which is on a level of tuma of shlishi, he himself, his body turns into a shlishi. And therefore what? So what if he's a shlishi? Therefore, if he eats truma, it becomes a shlishi. However, he could still touch. Ha'ochel shlishi shel truma asur lechol. He's not allowed to eat. Why? Because it becomes shlishi. Umuter liga. He's not allowed to eat truma, but he's allowed to touch truma. So what do you see from here? Alma b'achilo over rabbanim ma'alo, b'negilo over rabbanim ma'ilo. You see, the rabbanim were able to distinguish and say, you know what? For eating, you need to go to the mikvah. You are tameh, you cannot eat. But touch, you could touch. And memela by us, also by the oinen, you're asking me a question about an oinen. It seems like the oinen could touch in our Mishnah. But it says in another Mishnah that an oinen has to go to the mikvah. Yeah, if he wants to eat, he must go to the mikvah. But if he wants to touch, no, he could touch without going to the mikvah. They weren't makbid on touching. You see that by a kayin who's a shlishi. Weiter. Next sugya. Ve'enoi choylek lechol. A oinen cannot divide up his portion to eat. As the Gemara miflag udalei palig v'chim zamni le'yachel. As we said before, there's a difference between taking a portion, taking a couple pounds home, and doing whatever you want with it, or just eating a piece of meat. Eating a piece of meat, a cotton could eat, but he cannot take a portion. Over here also, the oinen cannot take home meat, but he could eat. If they invite him over to eat, he could eat. Ask the Gemara Vermini, but I have a question. It says oinen could eat a korban pesach. It says mufurish that he cannot eat kachim. Why can't he eat kachim? It says if he's invited over, he could eat. Our Mishnah is referring to a case of korban pesach, and in korban pesach, once Chachamim went easy on him and they said, you know what, we're going to release the Isser. There's an Isser d'Rabbanan for you to eat kachim, but because there's a chiyuv d'oraisa to eat a korban pesach, there's an Isser kares not to eat the korban pesach. We're going to relax our Isser. Since we relaxed our Isser to eat korban pesach, we're also going to relax the Isser to eat kachim. The problem is in the wording. It says mefurish v'loy b'kachim. V'oichel is pischol erev av'loy b'kachim. Okay, so we have to explain that. The rest of the year, you can't eat a korban pesach, so you can't eat kachim. The Gemara explains, since you could eat the korban pesach, you could also eat kachim. Since the rest of the year you can't eat a korban pesach, you can't eat kachim. But it says before you can't eat kachim together with the korban pesach. The pshat is, it means the rest of the year you can't eat kosher. Rav Asi Omar, maybe we should go with something less dachuk. Lo kash. Kan shemeis lemeis bar basar ukvar bar basar. Kan shemeis lemeis b'shloisha asar ukvar bar basar. Very simple. There's a difference when the person's father died. Did he die the day before Erev Pesach or on Erev Pesach? Why? What's the difference? Because to be an oinen midoraisa is the day of the death, not the day after. So if the father died on the 13th, that makes him a oinen on the 13th. But on the 14th, when you eat the Korban Pesach, he's not an oinen. Then he's only oinen derabbanan. Okay. What about at night? Because we're going to see a whole sugya. Rav Shimon holds the night of the ptira of the father's of the person's father, person's relative, is only the rabbanon also. But that's the night of the day that he was nifter. So if he was nifter on the 13th, then that night he's a oinen only with the rabbanon. The following day he's a oinen with the rabbanon, but that night he's not an oinen at all. You could only be a oinen the rabbanon at night when you're a oinen the iraisa in the day. But if you're oinen the rabbanon during the day, you cannot be an oinen the iraisa the rabbanon at night. Then there's zero. So let's see again. When the mace died on the 14th, then that night, when you're supposed to eat the Korban Pesach, he's a oinen midrabbanon. So what happened? And he buried him that day. It doesn't really matter when he buried, but okay. So that night, he's a oinen the rabbanon. And then Chacham said, you know what, you're a oinen the rabbanon, we're going to relax that. So you could eat the dairais of Pesach and not be over in Karas. But we're not going to relax kachin. But over here, his relative died on the 13th. Memela on Lela, so the following day he's a oinen midrabanan. But that following night he's not a oinen at all. That night is not anything. He's not an oinen midrabanan. Therefore, during the daytime he cannot eat and he cannot take a portion. But at night he could eat kachin. That's the nafkamina. Nafkamina is when he became an oinen. Did he become an oinen that day and therefore he cannot eat kachin that night? Or he became an oinen the day before and therefore that night he could eat kachin? Simple Gemara here. Man tana aninos lailom the rabbanon. Who's this man omer that says that the night of the aninos is only the rabbanon? Rabbi Shimon, he goes according to Rabbi Shimon Baichai. This anya. We learned aninos lailom the Torah. The aninos of the night is the Raisa Divi Rabbi Yehuda, that is Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, no, it's only with the Rabbanon. I'll prove it to you. Shari Omru. Said a person who lost his father that day of Erev Pesach could go to the mikvah and eat the Korban Pesach at night. Now, if aninos was the Raisa, how could he eat the Korban Pesach at night? He's a oinen. I mean, the Raisa is not allowed to eat it. It's only because it's the Rabbanon, and Rabbanon relaxed. The Rabbanon have the right to say he could eat it. As the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon aninos lailom the Rabbanon, does Rabbi Shimon in fact hold that at night it's only the Rabbanon the aninos? A person who's an oinen cannot send his korbanos to the Beis Hamikdash. Seems like even a Korban Pesach, in other words, is deraisa. Lo lebarben Pesach. Everything he can't send any korban, but a Korban Pesach he could because it's only the Rabbanon. As the Gemara Vatanya, Rabbi Shimon Omer Shlomim. Unbelievable. If you think about what the Gemara is saying here, the Gemara says that the word shlomim means whole, to be whole. When a person brings a shlomim, he must be whole. How is a person whole? When he's besimcha. When a person is ba'atzvos, when a person is sad, he's not whole. Therefore, a oinen who's sad cannot bring shlomim. You hear what's going on here? It's unbelievable. It's not pshat until now. Most of us, at least, thought mitzvah gdoila liyos b'simcha. That's okay. It's a Breslov thing. It's a chumrah. It's a nice thing to be happy. It's a bonus. You know, if you're happy when you do a mitzvah, wow, you get extra credit. The Gemara says no. Without simcha, there's no shleimus. You're missing a part of the mitzvah. to the point that an Einen cannot bring Shlomim. You hear what's going on in Nachamal. Simcha is not a good thing to do when you're doing a mitzvah. It's essential. It's an integral part of the mitzvah. Without simcha, you don't have shleimos. You don't have a shlomim. You can't bring a shlomim when you're anointed. Not only that, says the Gemara goes on to say every single carbon is the same thing. How do you know that if a person came out of jail, a person had a machla, neirah, and he was saved from the machla, how do you know he cannot bring a carbon toida when he's anointed? Let me show you the pasuk here. I forgot to show you the pasuk. It's not a good idea, it has to be. And if you don't have simcha, you don't bring shlomim, and you don't bring a toida either, because you have to eat a toida when you're besimcha. And how do I know that an oila also has to be brought when you're besimcha? I really hope to remember this Gemara. A lot of times the Gemara says an inspired thing and then I forget about it. I have to remember. Someone has to remind me. To do a mitzvah, when you shake lulav, it has to be besimcha. It's not a psamayla gdoila. It is part of the mitzvah. How do I know that oila also you have to be besimcha? Because the only two korbanos in the world they could bring voluntarily are a shlomim and a oila. So just like a shlomim has to be besimcha, so too a oila. And here's a difficult one. How do I know to include bechor u'maiser? And what's the next word? U'pesach. How do I know that a korban pesach cannot be brought by a noinan? We just said that a korban pesach is brought by a noinan. And here it says mefurish that a korban pesach not. Marbani bechor u'maiser u'pesach. Shekein enom ba'im al-chet. They come for their own reason, not because somebody sinned. And a korban pesach is included here. I know that you can't bring a chatas and asham when you're sad. There's the actual word zevach to come to include the chatas and asham. How do I know all korbanos? A bird, a mincha, wine, wood. So sometimes you bring a wood carbon. You bring a carbon wood. I'm bringing wood to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Like you bring oil, bring wood. Rashi says no. When you donate wood, you bring a carbon together with it. How do I know that you can't bring it while you're sad? You have to be happy. Only when you're whole. You yourself are whole. You are not whole when you are sad. You're not whole when you're sad. But what do we do from all these korbanos? One of them mentioned this Pesach. You cannot bring a korban Pesach when you're anointed. I see Noam shaking his head. He's not going to like it so much. From this entire list, you got to remove Pesach. It was just brought there because usually when it says Bechor Meiser, it goes together with Bechor Meiser Pesach. They always go together. But in fact, it's a mistake. Korban Pesach you could bring when you're sad. That's something that you bring even when you're sad. You bring a korban Pesach. And finally, Gemara says, Rav Sheshes Omar, my Pesach, Shalmei Pesach, Givaldik. I used to ask yeshiva guys, because I used to tell people, oh, you got to do Daf Yomi. Why? Because nobody remembers this, nobody knows this. But then I realized that I myself don't remember it. Like half a year later, I forgot, so I don't ask anymore, because it's embarrassing. I myself don't know. How many korbanos should one bring when he brings a korban Pesach? Don't tell me korban Pesach, there's a lot more than that. So Oilas Riyah is a korban that you always have to bring when you go up to see the Rebbeinu Shalom in the Beis Hamikdash on Yom Tov. But there's two korban chagigas. Korban chagiga on Erev Pesach, korban chagiga on the first day of Pesach, and then you also have Shalmei Simcha. What's this korban chagiga that you bring on the 14th? Because the way korban Pesach works is a lot of people gather together and they become partners in this korban Pesach. So it turns out that each person can get a little bit more than a kazayis, but you have to eat it ala soiva. You have to make sure that you're not starving. So you shecht more meat to eat. And you shecht the korban chagiga. So, but it's not really chagiga. So that's what it's saying here. It's not a korban pesach. It's a korban chagiga. So the Gemara says that a oinen doesn't bring this chagiga, but he does bring a carbon pesach. Amar Rav Sheshes Amar my pesach shalmi pesach. Since it goes together with the carbon pesach, so I could call it a pesach. It's not really pesach, but it's there in order to eat the carbon pesach in the right way. So it's called a chagiga that goes shalmi pesach. But isn't that in the category of shlamim, which we said that you have to be besimcha, and of course the oinen can't bring it? Says Gemara, you're right. It is in the category, but it's a separate category. That's why I had to mention it. Tana shlamim aboy machas pesach, v'tana shlamim aboy machas atzma. The tana shlamim aboy machas pesach is the one that comes to the carbon pesach, and is the regular one. If I wouldn't have mentioned this one, so kedai dechamina chaylu machas pesach asu ki gufei the pesach damo. It comes together with the carbon pesach. So I would think that an oinen could bring it. Kamash malon that an oinen cannot bring it. Rabbi Isai. Have a wonderful day. Be'ezer Hashem. I'll be back in the Beis Medrash. If everything goes well, I'll be back in the Beis Medrash tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.